Good evening. Welcome to another edition of African Americans Ain't Africans, the Think Show that proves without a shadow of a doubt that the so called African American didn't find their way to America in the trunk of a ship. I'm your host, the Indigenous One. Tonight we're going to look at the de-evolution of music. And we're not going to go that far back in history. We just want to point out some things to you, how things used to be taught at one time, but now it's not even paid attention to. There used to be a time when people in the community learned from their peers in the community. And I'll give you some examples of what that is. Many of you know what it is already, but you'll see what can happen with the de-evolution of music that has been virtually wiped out. And I'm going to show you how. So we're going to start right here, in the history of music, right here. It goes back further than this, way further than this, but we're going to start right here to give everybody a quick peek of how the music has evolved and also the passing down of the information. Now, what you see here is Duke Ellington. Many of you have heard of Duke Ellington. He was a big band, on the music, master of the music, like so many people are. He was just in a different time frame. He was in the 1930s and 40s, had big bands. And this was the type of music maybe you may not listen to, but maybe your grandfather, great grandfather, great whoever, uncles listened to this music. It was kind of like pop music is today. One of the things you'll notice about Duke Ellington and his band is that including him, there are 14 people in the band. And when you listen to Duke Ellington's style, the music was flawless. The horns, many of those guys are horns players. Man, if you knew what horn players did to a song, it'll blow you away. But it's 14 cats in the band. And remember, Duke Ellington wasn't the only one. Cab Calloway, Miles Day. These cats had 14, 15 people in the group. But what's a trip and something that we never think about when we're looking at, paying attention to this is, where did these guys live? What did these guys do other than play music for Duke Ellington, Cab Calloway, whoever was rolling back then, the big band? Because remember, they did most of their stuff in New York City. Why New York City? That's where most of the people are. So when they were at work, they had to be in New York City. But when they weren't working, they lived in nearby places, not as expensive as New York City. Now you can imagine this yourself. And maybe some of you guys live in these areas. You may not live in Los Angeles. You may live in a suburb away or two away from Los Angeles and commute in. These guys were doing the same thing. New Jersey, some of them moved to Ohio, lived in Ohio. Why? Because Ohio was right between Chicago and New York. Chicago was another big place. So they was living modestly because, living in the big city would eat up a lot of their earnings. I know every single one of you know what I'm talking about. So where these cats lived, they lived in New Jersey, Ohio, Philadelphia. Now, this is the evolution that we're talking about. So these cats lived around these places. When you look at musically, what came out of these places is what these guys learned in the band. Because remember, these band members lived in these places. Philadelphia, New Jersey. Doesn't Parliament Funkadelic come out of New Jersey? Doesn't Philadelphia International, Ohio? I mean, damn near every musical group you can name come out of Ohio. That was bad. That was off the hook. They got these ways musically because the guys who were in Duke Ellington band lived in these places. And when they weren't on stage or at work, they were teaching at home in the schools, had their own privates, whatever. These guys were teaching other cats how to play music, which they were doing with Duke Ellington. Now time is moving. Remember, time is going as this is other generations of children are growing up, listening to music. It's come didn't don't the Isley brothers come out of New Jersey? Think of all the big people today. And you can ask probably your grandmother and grandfather this, that's still blowing the day. They said the dude from the Isleys brothers still getting down. Think about that. Ronald Isley, he got to be 90. He got to be 90. This is, imagine how much music the Isley brothers influenced. Still doing it today. Younger kids today. Check out all the bands that came right after Duke Ellington's. Because you normally have what, a 30, 40-year run normally. These cats be going for a long time. Who came after the Duke Ellington set? After that music started fading out, people started listening to what? And this is just not in the Northeast up in New York. Remember, the music influence is everywhere. You got blues down in the South. You got Stax record down there. Check out all the blues. Huge. Same guys. The music is impeccable. Ask your grandmothers and grandfathers, they'll tell you. If they weren't listening to funk, R&B, soul music, they were listening to blues. They were listening to blues, learning from these people. And remember, musicians was big in those days. Now we're moving forward. Okay, so let's say Duke Ellington was in the 30s and 40s. So let's move a generation forward to the 1960s. Now, these cats are still working, they're still doing their gigs, but going on the road and doing all that slowed down. So they were doing work at home, giving music lessons and stuff. Now you come into the bands like the OJs, groups like that, Sam Cooke, Aretha Franklin, James Brown. Now the music is ramping up. More people are listening to it. More people are listening to it because you got different flavors in there, different styles, different acts, and all of it's funky. All of it's funky. So then you got so, and that music is influencing millions of kids. So this is when your music is taken and it's made rock. You'll see a lot of those people on the album covers. It wouldn't have their faces on it. You can ask your grandmothers and grandfathers, they'll tell you. They wouldn't even put their faces on. There's acts today. I think the Isley Brothers are one of them. They may be one of them. They wouldn't even put their faces on the album cover to show who they was. Another way of stealing the money. We'll talk about that another time. But they'll tell you they wouldn't put you can see shows now, old shows now, where a brother will come out on American Bandstand or something, and the song is played on the radio. Check out radio back in the 50s and 60s. They wouldn't even show your face. And if they put your album out, it was normally a white face on it. Ask your grandmother and grandfather. But this music is influencing all those kids in the 60s. Remember, Motown popped up in the 60s. Stax Records, Stevie Wonder, all people that are, prominent today. This is 60 years ago, 65 years ago. Now we're talking about the devolution of music. Around this time, the record companies saw the money that it could make them. They saw the money back then, but it's evolving, it's growing. These people are making this business grow. The musicians are. The companies just come in and pimp the musician. Ask any entertainer out there about signing these contracts, and you guys already know anyway. I'm sure this gathering does. So all these bands are out. We move into the 70s. We're talking about the evolution of music. It hit it, like they say, it takes a couple of generations. When something is born, it takes a couple of generations for it to figure itself out. Here comes the 60s and 70s. The music is off the hook. That's your grandmothers and grandfathers. The funny thing about it is these bands kept to their roots. They still had 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 people in the band. I'm not just talking about the people who are the act. The Jackson Five is the act, but who was playing their music behind them? Marvin Gaye is an act, but he got 15, 16 people on stage playing his music to make it sound sweet. Then the record companies got slick. Hey, this music is selling pretty good, but we're still losing too much money. What do we do? You cut out the rest of the band and you just take it down to one person. I would be here all night explaining to you how many times that happened, but just a couple of examples. You're all familiar with a group called the Commodores. Would you go to a Commodores concert or a Lionel Richie concert? People who like music, people who like good music would tell you they rather go to a Commodores concert. Would you rather go to a Michael Jackson or a Jackson 5 concert? Now, many of you are young and don't realize the impact the Jackson 5 made, blew it out the water, and they were being pimped by the companies that they worked with. So this is what I'm saying. When we get into these companies, we have millions of examples of how they do the people that they, want to work with. The people who they want to work with always come out on the losing end. There has to be a better way, and you are going to have to come up with that way or teach your children to do it or however, because it's something that we don't need to be in anymore. It really turns the people out. And being that we want to rush to get in there, it means that we have some serious problems moving forward. So you get people groups like the Ohio Players, like I said, Parliament Funkadelic, Zap, Roger. You get all these bands, and they all got 13, 14 people in the band, not breaking away from the roots that started all of this. But the company said, hey, we don't need that. We just need one person. James Brown had a band, what, 20 people in the band? Cut, take the lead person or whoever the companies think the lead person is, pump them up, and put them out there and kill the rest of the band. Now your music is devolving. And around this time, like I say, you don't have to believe me. Ask your grandmothers and grandfathers. You want to talk to them about something, talk to them about music. They'll like talking about music. Because if they grew up during that time, they was funky. Trust me. So when this started happening, another phenomenon took place in music. One that would let you know what was coming. Disco. Disco. That's your grandmother and grandfather about that tell you. It was horrible than gangster rap. It was more horrible than gangster rap, if you could believe that. Horrible. Horrible. And if you just do a little digging into disco, you will find it's for the other community. The other community that feels like they don't have to duplicate themselves or reproduce themselves. Notice that. Notice that music. It's not music. Stevie Wonder said music is a world within itself. That's a language we all understand. I don't have to tell you it's good. When it hits, you know. When somebody have to try to coerce you and make you dance all crazy and act like you've never seen a person act before, they're trying to convince you that the music is good. You don't need convincing. All you need is hearing. You know what's good, but other people will try to influence you. And a lot of times that's where we get caught up at. So late 70s, mid to late 70s into the 80s, disco was gone. It don't like it was that horrible. People called for it to be banned. Now, that was a cool part of history. If you've never seen it before, or if you don't believe things that you know will work. All you got to do is mobilize and put your hands together. Hands. That's all you need to do. Be on the same page on something that affects us all. It's that simple. Moving up into the 80s, another form of music hits comes real popular. It's called rap. You see, that didn't last long. It was called rap. Rap wasn't nothing too strange from what was happening prior. It was just cats because remember, this is when the music programs are being taken out of school. You used to go to school, ask your grandmother and grandfather. You used to can go to school and take music lessons. I'm sure you can have it at some schools now. I'm sure it's built back up, but they were totally abolished. So the kids didn't have musical access to music like they once did. So now they just started rapping over music that they heard from their parents. So, right? So this is what I'm saying. We have to look at things how things were instead of just jumping to conclusions, not knowing things. The first rap song that hit was a song from another artist, an artist called Chic. Ask your grandmother or grandfather, or you can just pull it up if you have a problem understanding this. They just took music that they'd heard prior and just rapped over words. That's way less expensive than having to pay a 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 piece band. And the music was still funky. There wouldn't be no MC Hammer without Rick James. There wouldn't be no MC Hammer without George Clinton. All of these are the same. So you see how that flows down. But if you're watching, you're paying attention, you can see the devolution happen. How it's not evolving into something greater. It's devolving its listeners into another species. Seriously. Because when music is supposed to make you think, music is supposed to bring clarity, right? Music is letting you see from another view. Music is letting you know how things could be. Now, I'm not saying this is happening with all music because it's not. And that's why I have the word pop in parentheses. Pop music is just, pop is short for popular. Popular is what everybody listens to. It's a hodgepodge. And since that came along, seriously, we started listening to what everybody else listened to and stopped focusing on what we've developed. Shortly after rap hit, a new word that came out. It's called hip hop. That's when the music took another downturn. They started teaching you were from Africa, X Clan, Queen Latifah, started wearing these African medallions, beating it. This is the same time the term African American came out, mid 80s. Probably in some people, it started to filter in the early 80s. But by the mid 80s, the term African American had been well established. These people with this new form of music wearing African medallions, talking about Africa, blah, 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 blah. This is why now you have people that can't even fathom anything else because the music, which was supposed to be teaching you something, did. This is the evolution of music. Now, less than a generation before that, it was say aloud, I'm black and I'm proud. But ask your grandmother and grandfather this. This is why you got to do genealogy. This is why you have to know who you are. Talk to your grandparents. Seriously. Talk to them. They'll tell you stuff you'll be like, wow, I didn't know that. Right before African American was coming in, they were using the term black. Why did they go from black to African American? Like I'm saying, ask your grandmother and grandfather these things, and they will confirm it. And I know you know they don't lie. If a grandparent lies to a grandkid, they're demons. You better know that now. You don't get your feelings hurt. If a grandparent lies to their children, they're demons. You can take that any way you want. I didn't know. Yeah, you should have known. Talk to your grandparents about music. That's an easy way to get them into telling you about their lives and about where they come from and what they did, and their mothers and fathers' lives. This is your introduction into genealogy. Music is an excellent place to start. So we're into this hip hop thing. The music just starts getting crazier and crazier. There's something called that we never really heard about in music, beefs, where cats started arguing with each other over nothing. This is in the 80s, 90s. 90s come along and the music gets, it's more bubble gum. It's not real. It, it's not real. There's no instruments being played. Everything is on computer now. So that takes the vibe out of the music. Everything is computer oriented, old stuff that's been done before. No creativity. When you put out creativity, creativity grows. You put out the same thing over and over again, all that does is create a reality. If you say the same, if you say the same thing over and 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 over again, all it does is create reality. I don't know how that's not seen. You eat the same thing over and over and over again and over again, you're going to have the same results. You listen to the same music over and over and over and over and over, and over again, you're going to have the same results. You keep speaking the same words over and over and over and over and over and over again, you're going to have the same results. Francis Crest said this: when you keep calling your women bitches, you're going to have the same result. They're going to start acting like it because that's all they hear over and over and over and over again. Why isn't that simple fact taught before the kid even walk out the door? Follow this with the devolution of music, the de-evolution of music. Listen to tell your grandma to pull out her record collection. I bet she'll have some of the finest music you've ever heard in your life. And the people I named, these are just the popular people, and I just said their name because it was something that you could connect to, something you would be familiar with. I haven't even brought up people like Nancy Wilson, Billy Eckstein, Sun Ra, the people who made the music what it has devolved into today. You would wet yourself listening to them. The music is that beautiful. Back to the devolvement. So then, and this is what really gets me about so-called black people and African American. You always talk about how great you are and what you did and blah blah blah. What happened to the music? Because this was like early '90s, and this came out in Los Angeles. I'm sure it hit all over. A group called NWA, and I'm gonna show you when I say the devolvement of music. Check this out. I, I I don't know if it was late '90s, late '80s, early '90s. A group called NWA hit, and one of the songs they played on the radio, they had a song called "A Bitch Is a Bitch." Some horrible stuff. Soon as we heard that, all my homeboys, all my homegirls, soon as that hit, we all said, that's the end of music. And I'm going to show you how and why it is. Put out the most horrible crap ever. And everything that came after damn near was the same way. Not everything, not 100%. It was a couple. But for real, I'm talking about pop, popular, popular. You may like it. So, like, I talked to people who was on that Biggie kick. This was a little while after NWA. People who were on that Biggie kick. And I'm like, but he talked about killing little girls and throwing them off the roof, raping and how, explain to me how that is, how he's a great person. Why you had a Biggie necklace around your neck. Explain. Explain Tupac. Explain. Huh? And nobody can explain. They're just trained to like these people. Why? Because they're played over and over and over and over and over again. That's all. Nothing. Yeah, you probably can pop your fingers and snap your feet. Groovy, man. But what is being put out for the children to listen to and pick up? And since that hip hop came along, it's been total chaos because you're still getting pimped by the record companies. Now you pimping each other, but you see the state of music now, or at least you should. You should see the state of music. So this is a de-evolution of music. But the cool thing about the de-evolution of music, not nothing cool about it, but through this music, you got grandparents, you got great grandparents that listened and know some of the people that played some of this stuff. Talk to them about it. Ask the people in your family questions. Find out things they know. You have to ask them. They've never talked about it before. They've never been asked about it before. because nobody cares to ask them. You ask them. And trust me, a lot of the stuff where you can't see clear now, remember, you come through your mother. You were developing when your mother was a baby. I know you know. So the reason that you're not told as indigenous because you'll pick up on your ways. It'll blow all this what you see today out the water. You have to remain to be called black. Black is an adjective that describes a thing. People are not things. You would be amazed at how hard it is for people to understand that simple fact. If you know how sentences and words are put together, that you got different parts of speech. That's why ask your grandmother, ask your grandfather this. If you called if you called your grandmother or grandfather's grandmother and grandfather black, they'd slap the shit out of you because they knew what it mean. And they only had a sixth grade education. The de-evolution of music is to make everything in your life crazy. Is to make everything in your life you can't understand it. You can't think. You can't feel. You lose you lose your senses. I'm talking all of them. That's what the de-evolution of music has done. Make your own music. You listen to one of the baddest bass players ever. He said how he learned to play the bass. He got a stick, put a rubber band on it, put it in the ant hole, and played it to watch the ants dance. James Jamerson. Look it up if you don't believe it. You can learn from yourself. You can learn from the people that you come from. And many of these people who have made it big, they in many of your families, friends of many of your family, grew up with people in your family. These are your folks. These are your kin. Speak to because you can if you they have this new platform. I keep getting invitations to it called TikTok. If you ever been on that, people have lost the ability to communicate. Just where people argue. You don't learn anything. You're being broken down. Before you were black, you were called Negro. Before Negro, colored. The number of terms that the so-called African American calls himself now exceed those four terms over the last 100 years. If that's what people called you, why today you calling yourself at least 100 different titles? You call yourself at least 100 different tribes, names. Won't even call on the tribe that you from, the family that you're from, the Duke Ellington band that you're from. Won't even call on that. You call yourself what other people tell you to call yourself. That's also in the ruination of music. So that was just a brief synopsis, on the music and what happens and how you're connected to it. These sounds, all these places. A lot of those people in those places, New York and New Jersey, a lot of them came up through the South. Because remember, wars were being made against your people. That's why you see a lot of these places shot to hell. Wars were being made on your people. Check out the Indian Wars in America. Those were against your people. I mean, you do know that, right? But when you take up arms to go fight for the people that's fighting against you, imagine how confused your children will be. Because in all of this that's going on, we look pretty dumb blaming other people, yet we're doing the exact same thing they say do. Then we want to come back and say, uh-huh. You're telling me that you go fight other wars or another, but they have nothing to do with you. The Vietnamese told you that. You'll fight somebody's war while your people at home catching hell. Real? Do you know how we look to other nations? So when other nations look at the African American, what do you think they see? Money. They come and set up your community, follow you around their stores, and you will stay in there for an hour. This is us giving our energy away. Guess what's one of the number one helpers of making that happen? Music. Music. So the same thing goes for music, goes for movies. Same thing. But the horrification of the movie's been going on for a long time. Ask your grandmom and granddaddy. At least ask them. You want to check out some good music? Hit your grandmom and granddaddy's stash. Tell them to let you listen to some music that was put out in the 70s, 73, 74. Connect. That'll be a good way, an excellent way. So, one of the things that the people lost, besides their name, they lost their ability to do certain things. This is one of the main abilities that you used to have that you don't have no more. You used to have the ability to communicate with each other telepathically. Well, because soon as I say that, normally what I get, I don't even finish closing my mouth from making that statement. That's how we communicate now. Won't even let me explain it. Just that's so when you go to TikTok, that's what you hear. I used to communicate telepathically. Okay, I'm gonna tell you, but try this out first. Just don't go out running your mouth because you won't have no firsthand knowledge of it. So that's the problem that's going on with with the uh American history. They don't get no get to put it in context. They just get the information and run off with it and will mess up everything. Like you see it now. And when they don't know anything, they get arrogant and loud and stubborn and all that other stuff. You can't speak. You can't speak. So this is how people communicate telepathically. Let me give you the setup first so you'll know where you're at, so you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. Okay, everybody has a mother. Mother. As you were growing inside of your mother, if you're a female, you will know this. Your baby was growing inside you. I know this is hard for us a lot to understand because we've been taught just to be dumb because we have been trained to be that. You're if you're a woman, it goes for men too, but I'd say with women because it'll be easier for females to understand because they're the ones who have the babies. When your mother was in her grandmother, you were in your mother. It's like it's a connection there. That umbilical cord connects you through not only physically but also spiritually. Remember, spiritually, you're not your human body. Your spirit or your soul is inside your body, making all the necessary adjustments. You have to know that. If you don't know that or you don't understand that, you won't understand nothing I'm saying. How you communicate telepathically, you have to keep focus on you. You have to keep focusing. What's coming in? What are these thoughts that are coming to you? What are these songs that are coming to you? Don't you just sometimes be chilling and a certain song will pop in your head? A certain thought will pop in your head? Where is that coming from? Seriously. Doesn't sometime when you're in the bed with your husband or wife and you guys are snuggling and getting cuddly and stuff, don't you guys breathe in each other's ears, on each other's necks? The hairs on your body pick up and make you feel all some kind of way. Why is that? Why is that? See, these are things we don't really pay attention to at all. You used to communicate telepathically. Just what I told you right there is enough for you to start doing it, teaching yourself. Just don't take that and just run with it and try to hook it up to your iPhone. No, get some context. Remember, you have grandmothers and grandfathers who should have way more knowledge than you have now. Go get it from them. Go get it from them. Copper Color Lifestyle says she refused to get on TikTok. Those shorts lower the attention span and disrupt thinking. I didn't say this, but she's at, but that's what it's for. That's what it's for. A lot of these people on those things are you can tell. You can tell when somebody's a paid informant. You can tell when somebody is paid to do something simple. You can tell. It's to cut down on your speech. They're curtailing your speech so they can curtail your thinking. Speech and thought go together like hand and glove. And I know you know that. Stuff like what we talk about here, they'd shut me off on TikTok. They'll mute the mic all day long. I that because I have people send me, to come join my. I listen to them. I'm like, wow, really, really the arrogance. So with the music goes back. Like I say, you got grandparents, great grandparents, uncles, aunts. You can learn about a lot about yourself through the music. Just where you come from. If you're not in the area where your grandparents are from, go check out the music from that area. It'll tell you a lot about yourself. Serious. So we're going to go ahead and end it here. We want to run too long, but just to give you an idea of how the music, how it started and how it devolved to now. Because what they got playing music now, for real, y'all, that's music. I mean, seriously. No bands, no guitar, no bass, no horns, no harps, no flutes, no saxes. That's music. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.